jump straight in with questions. Front row, middle, Dave.
Ryan, I'm sure there's not too much you can say about Chase Young, but what can you say about the situation? Just what's the latest that you can pass along to us?
Right, I don't have any update for you right now. It's just an ongoing process right now, and certainly when I have and we have more information, we'll let you know, but there's really nothing I can talk about at this point.
Just a quick follow-up. Would you say you're optimistic, just your gut feeling, that he will be back at some point this year?
I mean, I just know that it's going on right now, and we're going to prepare for him to be back this week, and he'll practice this week, and once we find out more information, we'll go from there.
Third row left, Dan.
Ryan, Davon Hamilton's a guy who's been a champion in every game for you guys. How big has he been stepping up on that defensive line and becoming a leader for the defense?
Yeah, huge. That's there's two parts to the D line. Obviously, there's the inside guys, and then the ends, and he's really solidified the inside for us this year. Started with his offseason, and now he's producing at a high level. And to see him, get some sacks and actually affect the pass game as much as he has, that's been a huge deal for our defense.
When you go into a game and you don't have Chase and Jonathan Cooper, two captains, is he kind of a guy who steps up and becomes the leader of that group?
He has been, yeah. And he's not a real vocal guy, but he leads by example and sets a standard by the way he's gone about his business, and he has the respect of his teammates. Those guys know that he's been here for a while and put in his work, and the way he's gone about his business has been excellent. And now to see him producing it at such a high level, it's just a great testament to him and the development of our program.
Front row right here, Tim.
Yeah, two things quick, Ryan. I don't know if proud's the right word, but to watch, I'm sure you watched that LSU-Alabama game or some of it. How proud are you of watching Joey Burrow, the way he's flourished, et cetera?
Yeah, no, proud is definitely a word. Really happy for him and seeing the way he's playing and competing. He's a tremendous competitor, and watching him go into Alabama and win like that was really cool.
And, Coach Meyer told us one point, you and him sat around after that spring, and it was really close between those guys. How tough is it in these days to watch a guy that's that close walk out the door?
It's hard, but it's being at Ohio State. You think about that room. You had JT, you had Dwayne, and you had Joe. One is one of the more decorated players in the history of the Big Ten. The other guy's playing in the NFL, and the other one's probably leader for the Heisman right now. And so they all can't play. That's the thing about being a quarterback, and that's what's hard and sensitive about college football right now is that very situation. But it all works out in the end. We got a great quarterback we feel good about right now who's playing at a high level, but I think that's just part of the culture right now, or just the environment of college football, and certainly quarterback play.
Quickie, what did last week's game tell you about the focus of this team? There was a distraction, prohibitive favorite against a team, and y'all came out. Does that give you even more confidence going into this week? There won't be an overlook. I mean, how do you play that?
We talked about it all week, and when the team was aware of the situation, they knew that this was the first time we had faced some adversity, and we know that there's more adversity coming along the way. We don't know where, we don't know when, but we talked to the team about that from early on, that we were going to equip ourselves to be ready for any adversity that might hit us. That's just the way these seasons go, and championship teams, they're resilient in times of adversity, and it reveals your character. And so, the coaching staff, we relayed to the team and to the program that our character was at the forefront. The heart of this team is being showcased today to find out what we're really made of. And I think they took that to heart, and they played hard throughout the game.
Third row right, Rob.
You've been around a lot of teams. What would you define as the it factor for a team this team seems to have it? What is it? What are you looking for? What defines it?
I don't know yet. I think, again, some of these things are things that we'll probably go back in February and sit down and talk about over dinner or something like that. I think when you're in the middle of it right now, what you try to do is you try to forecast, what's coming here. And one of the things we have got to do is we have to hold ourselves to a certain standard, and that we cannot at any point lose our discipline, lose our focus, because like we had 13 penalties in a game. That's unacceptable. That's going to hurt us in a close game, and execution level's got to be at an all-time high, and the effort and all those things, and taking care of the ball and ball security, decision-making, communication, all of those things have got to be really good, if we're going to win close games. And so, our team hasn't really been in the fourth quarter of a dogfight yet. And so those are the things that we're really focusing on right now. But to answer your question, I think we'll know more of that at the end. the one thing that I know that I love about this team is the chemistry and the maturity.
Practice that. You just talked, you haven't had a fourth quarter game. You had some adversity in game versus Wisconsin, but is it just, are you wondering yourself, how are we going to do when we need, it's 3rd and 7 and we need it and we're behind if that moment comes? Do you practice it?
Yeah, not worrying about it, just preparing for it and making sure that we're constantly talking about it, what it means, and practicing at a high level. And then at the end of the day, you're just going to trust your training. And then when you're in that moment, you'll just go back to the way you've trained, the way you've prepared. And if you haven't done that the right way, then you won't execute the way you're supposed to. I think to our team's credit right now, they have prepared and they've executed at a high level in a lot of areas. And so that's good, but now we can't ever lose focus of that because that's when you get yourself in trouble. So that's the message this week.
Front row left, Nathan.
Justin Fields a couple times in his high school career had season-ending injuries. Obviously, went through a lot of stuff last year at Georgia. It's like when you're evaluating quarterbacks as you're bringing them in beyond X's and O's stuff, do you look for things like that, that they've proven themselves in adverse situations like that?
There's a lot of things, especially with a quarterback, that you try to dive into. I don't think you really know until you get them, though. And you try to do the best you can to ask the coaches in the area, to ask the people in the school, and find out the most you can about the individual, because all those things are tested, especially when you get into November. So, yeah, I mean, you got to ask all those questions because the talent is one thing, but being able to work through adversity and being consistent and making sure that you're tough enough. I mean, one of the hardest things about being a quarterback at the highest level, whether it's the NFL or where we're at, is the amount of meeting time. I mean, we have to spend so much time in the meeting room and watching film week in and week out. There's more time in the meeting room than there actually is on the field. And that takes discipline and that takes toughness, too, to make sure you're doing that because, the immature, the weak-minded, they start to take weeks off because it gets too much for them. And so those are all things that we want to make sure we have grinders at quarterback.
Has defensive performance helped him by just kind of taking some of the pressure off of him this season and letting him ease into things?
Well, I don't think he's eased into anything. I think that he's approached every game and every snap the right way. But it is good to have a defense as strong as ours is, so that we get the ball back. Like in the first half of that Michigan State game, maybe we weren't clicking on all cylinders, but the defense got us some turnovers early, and the more at bats we get, the better. But we also need to understand that there's going to be times where we're not going to have that luxury. So, but those are all things we talk about.
Lastly, what ways have you seen Jeff Okudah's presence on the field affect the way teams are attacking you in the passing game?
Well, I think that he doesn't get a ton of action over there because he's so good at what he does and he covers guys, and there's not a lot of room over there to throw it. And so I think that maybe affects where teams are going. If it's zone coverage, typically quarterback will just go where the zone tells him to go. But if it is man to man, most reads are matchup based. So they have to decide if that's a matchup they like or not.
Front row right, Austin.
Ryan, what did you think of Chugunov on Saturday?
I thought he started out okay. We get that delay game. I got it in late, but he's got to help me with that and get the thing off. And then we had the sack fumble. But then after that, I thought he settled down and played good. Got the ball out of his hand quick, threw some nice balls, made some good decisions. He's a guy who's been around a lot of football. He's very smart. He's a guy you can count on. You know what I mean? Just to understand what's going on, and he throws a good ball. I mean, he's got good touch, and he's very intelligent. So I mean, he can handle a lot without getting a ton of reps, and that's hard to do. And I think the good thing, he's played a decent amount of football this year, which is good. I don't know how many attempts he has, but when he's gone in there, I think he's competed and done well.
I know you like to say you don't have expectations or surprises, but when he got here, at least for me, I never thought we would see him play much for Ohio State. I mean, how far has he come? And I know circumstances changed this, but did you envision that he could be doing what he's doing right now?
Yeah, again, I didn't know, but that was a very unique situation. And to see where he's come, I understand your point. I think that he's come a long way. And, he came in not great shape. He'll tell you that. He kind of changed his body in the offseason and put a lot more work in. And, he's in his second year in the program, which, we haven't had a lot of those guys, just by the way of the situation at quarterback. And so when you're second year into the program, whether it's physically or mentally or understanding the scheme of the offense, it really helps you. And I think you can see him, when he is out there, he's pretty decisive in his where he's throwing the ball and his protection and everything.
Has your comfort level changed if something happened to Justin from where you were in August till now?
Well, I think there's a body of work there that's being built. So the more he's out there, the better you feel.
Second row left, Bill.
Ryan, I know throughout the year you have to sort of adapt your offense as things get put on field and on film and teams try to defend you, whether that's building off plays or installing new ones totally. What do you and the staff need to see from your guys before you're ready to put new stuff on the field on a Saturday?
Well, I think there's a good balance right there of finding the right things that your guys do well, and then also putting wrinkles in there. But we have to be able to execute at a high level in practice, or else it's not going to get called. Even if it's on the call sheet, if we don't feel great as a staff about the execution of it, we won't do it. We'll just run another play that we feel better about again until maybe the next week it's ready to go. But a great example of that was probably the play we used in the Michigan State game to Ben Vick. That was a play we've been working on for probably 4 weeks. It just wasn't right. And at that moment, it was right, and we executed it. There's been other times where we've run plays that it wasn't quite ready yet, and probably could have used a week of work. And and those are typically specials, which if a team sees it, they kind of recognize it pretty quickly. But then there's also the base plays. Those are plays you just carry week in and week out.
And it seems like for the most part, like wider zone runs, or I don't know if you call them mid zone or outside zone, whatever, have become more maybe of your base run play than tight zone would be. Is that because of, is there anything about JK that makes them better than that, or your offensive line that makes them better at that? Why has that sort of come to the forefront as your go-to run play?
It's been something that we've worked on. We want to have some versatility in the run game, and it's something we've kind of added here in the last year or so, year and a half. And it's been working well, but it's just part of the run game. We have a lot of things. We have, we want to hit them up the middle. We want to hit them, off tackle. We want to hit them outside, and then we have, a bunch of things off of that. But it's something that's gained momentum as the season's gone on.
And then just one more quickly about Chug. I know he's obviously from New Jersey, and you had some guys who probably were familiar with him when he first came here, Greg, and I think Bob Frazier might have been a QC coach here.
Yeah.
Did those guys have any input in helping you identify Chug as someone you could bring in here?
Yeah,
What did they tell you about him?
Yeah. Coach Frazier, knew of him when he was in New Jersey and the whole thing. So that he gave a little bit of a character reference there and gave us some information, which was, kind of allowed us to say, okay, let's take this guy in.
I want to ask you about Jonah Jackson. A year ago he was playing against you guys. What has he meant to the offensive line and the way that line has come together? How valuable has he been?
Sometimes I'm not sure, because I don't want to overstate it, because I think what Josh and Wyatt and Thayer and Brandon have done this year has been excellent. And maybe, they'd be playing the same way if Jonah didn't come, but there's just something about Jonah, to me, that's really helped that group. They've brought a certain level of professionalism. They communicate, the way they go about their business. They're fun to be around. The whole thing. And I think it's a little bit of both. I think they were great for Jonah. I think Ohio State was great for Jonah at the right time. Sometimes in those situations, they don't work out great. It's a round peg in a square hole. This wasn't. This was a great fit, personality-wise, the whole thing. And I think he's had a lot to do with the success of the O-line this year.
Also, when you're looking at film, when you play a game and you score 73 points, and you've had a lot of games that have gotten away from the other team, what are you looking for to tell you that we took a step forward when a game gets out of hand? When you're grading film, because you always talk about your tweaking things, but what will tell you, yes, we're better today than we were last week, other than the score?
Yeah. I think it's you start off the first quarter and you figure out, how do we come out of the gates? How prepared were we early in the game? How were we playing when they were fresh, when we were fresh? What kind of adjustments did we make as we get into the second quarter? And, you take a look at third down, red zone, short yardage, and, how are we executing? Is it just a better player making a play against, somebody on the team that maybe isn't as talented? If that's the case, that's not coaching. That's just good recruiting. And, we want to make sure that the execution level and the scheme and all those things are at all-time high. And so that, when talent does equate, that we're going to still be able to execute at a high level. And that's the challenge.
Ryan, I'm wondering if you heard last week Michigan defensive coordinator Don Brown's comments about they working week by week on Ohio State's offense, and that the Ohio State offense better be careful. I was wondering if you had heard those comments?
I didn't.
Would you care to respond?
Not really.
How often do you guys work on stuff in practice that is designed for later in the season?
Yeah, well, we're always working on our packages to make sure that we have wrinkles, and there's certain things that never see the field, and there's certain things that do. Some things you come up with a great idea as a coach, and you work on it for a couple weeks, and you can't let your ego get in the way. It's a great idea, you like it, and it just doesn't fit right, and you have to kind of put it aside. But then there's also things with you work on, you get them ready as time goes on, and but that's kind of something that goes on with every program, every kind of offense throughout the season.
Front row right. Bill?
Zach Harrison and Garrett Wilson, I think, were your two highest rated recruits coming in. They've eased in. Are they at the point now where you don't think of them as freshmen, and what can they give you in the home stretch here?
Well, they've played a lot of football. That's just the way the season's played out. So they've made a lot of mistakes, but they've grown from it. So they're ahead of where they would typically be for a freshman, and so I think they're both able to make an impact here late in the season.
And I don't think anyone's asked you about Rutgers, and obviously they've had their struggles. What's the challenge of a game like this when everyone assumes that this is going to be a blowout?
Well, it just goes back to our execution and our discipline and what is our standard. And, we certainly have respect for everybody we play. And, I've known Nunzio a long time. He's gonna do a great job. He's had a week off, and those guys are going to come out and play really, really hard. And so, if we're going to take anything for granted, I think we're just going to show up and Piscataway and we're going to win a game. That's not going to happen. So we have to do a good job. And those guys are going to play really, really hard. So, but at the end of the day, the focus is that it comes back to us. And what is our standard? And we have to make sure that we're holding up that standard. And we got a lot at stake here. So we can't, put any of that stuff to risk. And that's just something that the coaching staff's been hammering home with the players. And to this point, they've respected that, and they have to continue to.
Right next door, Joey.
Brian, what's kind of the plan for Rashad Berry? He kind of played tight end, played defensive end. Is he going to go two ways the rest of the season? How do you kind of?
Yeah, he's very talented, so he has the ability to do both. And based on the game plan and based on what we're seeing week in and week out, we're going to try to plug him in where we think he can best help. But that could be on either side of the ball.
Is that a challenge at all in practice, just in terms of developing a plan for him?
Just organizationally, yeah. I mean, you have to make sure you're organized and make sure you're getting the right amount of time and meetings, and then individual on the field, and then getting the teamwork.
And can you kind of give us an update on where Gunner is in his development? Obviously, we've seen more of Chugunov kind of as the first guy.
Sure.
In return with that trip, but where's Gunner at?
Yeah, I mean, Chris has had 2 years in a program, so he knows it better than Gunner does. And but Gunner is getting better. He's still learning the offense, but right now Chris is ahead of Gunner.
Far right over here, Clay.
Your players encounter sudden change on the field. You've had two kind of major sudden changes. Hey, we want you to run the program for the first 3 games last year. This year with Chase, how does that promote growth as a head coach?
Well, I
There's
think
no manual to this thing.
that's right. Yeah, no, good question. I think, one, as a leader, your job is to solve problems, and Colin Powell has a great quote about that. And that's your job. And if people stop coming to you with the problems, then you're not a very good leader. And that's the job as a head coach, is to solve the problems. And that there's going to be adversity along the way, especially at a place like this, which is a high-profile place. Things like that are going to come up. And when that happens, we're going to be steady in the boat. We're going to go back to who we are, and it reveals character. And so being strong in there and counting on our leaders and communicating well with the team is all important, and that we're going to get through it in the end, no matter what it is.
Far right, Jeremy.
Ryan, on the recruiting trail, you kind of knew with Jeff Hafley what he was like as a coach, but obviously he'd been out of the recruiting game for almost a decade. Has he been what you expected or more, and how has he helped you kind of reassert the footprint in New Jersey with Greg moving up?
Yeah. So I remember when we were the 49ers, I told Jeff, I said, Jeff, you have an unbelievable combination of recruiting, because he was a great recruiter when he was in college, and ability to relate to players, and then his understanding of defensive football. And I think that's what makes a great college football coach, those 3 things. If you can relate to players, if you know what you're doing, and you're a really good recruiter, then you can be an all-star. And I think Jeff's an all-star. I thought that when he was at Rutgers and at Pitt. I felt like that when I worked with him in the NFL, and I certainly feel like that now. And his respect in Jersey and his work in Jersey is going to pay us dividends in the end.
And final sets of questions. Front row left, Doug.
Ryan, were you the number 2 quarterback at New Hampshire before you were the starter?
I think I was the 3rd. when I was a redshirt sophomore. I was the third string, and then I became the starter, yeah.
So you never really were in that, I'm going into the next play if the starter gets hurt?
Not really, no.
Okay. If you had to describe like the perfect backup quarterback, the ideal number two, what are the traits that you would look for?
I mean, everyone's different, so you don't know where they're at in their development, if it's a younger guy or an older guy, but you want somebody who's able to execute the offense without getting a lot of reps, physical reps with the first team, and that's hard to do. So I know it sounds funny, but somebody who can play with their imagination, someone who can sit in the back and visualize what's going to happen so that when they do have their opportunity, they're able to play at a high level. And some guys can do that. Other guys struggle with that. Other guys need reps. They're rep guys. Other guys can sit there and kind of sit in meetings and put themselves in a situation, but that can be exhausting mentally for somebody. And so I think that's one of the traits of a backup quarterback that helps them be successful.
And to double back on what you've been asked about a lot, just the idea of first-time head coach, and I know you dealt with some stuff last year, obviously. But when things were going so well, you guys are undefeated. You're not even playing into the fourth quarter. Was there a part of you, I don't know if bracing is the right word, but like preparing for like it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And if this chase thing is the first sign of that, like, how did you prepare yourself for the idea that something was going to come?
Well, when I took the job, I mean, I knew that that's what this is going to bring. I mean, not every day is going to be perfect. We're not going to be undefeated forever. Things aren't going to be perfect all the time. That's part of being the head football coach at a big-time program and being at Ohio State. I mean, we know that. And that's part of the job, and that's a big part of the job. And, talk to my family, talk to Nina about that at length, is that there's going to be some days that are better than others. But at the end of the day, we're going to do things the right way. We're going to recruit great people. And when things get rough, we're just going to rely on each other. And it's going to come back to our character, and that in the end, adversity reveals character. And so as long as we're strong, great things are going to happen, and we can get through anything together. And so that's what's going to happen. And, I know that things are going to come up along the way, but we'll be strong in there, steady in the boat, and we work through it together.
Thank you.
stripping that off of health. I need to adjust the mic.
Alrighty, we got Coach Wilson here. We're gonna open up the floor, far left, Lori, 610 WTVN.
Coach, Ryan Day had said, and several of your players had said, that they don't feel like the offense has played up to their own personal potential yet, and yet you scored 73 against Maryland. What exactly is this offense capable of if we haven't seen all of it yet?
Well, I mean, so you've seen a lot of offense as far as plays and a lot of different players. I think, I think it's just each guy saying they know that they still can always continue to clean and enhance their personal performance. So whether, you have a good, good game up front, but you don't bump off some twist and protection as good as you want, or, receivers, the timing of the routes are maybe a little bit shorter, back misses cut, or he sees he's loose with the ball. I just think, you're at the time of the year where practices can always get a little shorter because you don't overdo it. And that being said, that's when fundamentals can start to regress. Guys take things for granted, and you start getting, you start running zone plays, and after a while, linemen just start running left and running right, and they don't really identify and get their aiming points and landmarks. So we're trying to just emphasize to the group that there's, you're always, Coach Myers was saying, when it's going great, that's awesome, but enhance it. And we're just trying to push these guys to continue to realize that their best is in front of them. There's a lot of talented players here. A lot of guys are playing very, very well, but they still can be better, and we're just trying to push to find out without being negative.
Front row right, Austin, Lettermen Row.
Kevin, you've been doing this for a long time, and this is just a unique stretch. I know you don't take anything for granted with Maryland and Rutgers, but you know that the next 2 weeks after that are probably going to be bigger tests, right? So I wonder if, as a coordinator and play caller, would you want to save some stuff, or would you like to throw as much out there as possible to make a defense prepare for everything you could do?
Yeah, well, okay, so that's a great question because you started with saying the test. And the biggest test is to find a way to keep guys to stay humble and be their best every day. That's the hardest test. Because I started a long time ago when I had a few talented teams at Oklahoma, and I started having this little saying, as soon as you think you got it, you're getting ready to get it. And that being said, you don't, you're not trying to, it's not about stats, it's not about numbers, it's not about scores, it's just continuing to find ways to have people to come in the meeting room, to come to practice every day, stay hungry. This is a very talented team, but it's very young. That being said, it's really a good group to coach. You got, guys like Josh Myers and White Davis are playing great. It's really their first year, so they're still anxious to learn and watch themselves on videotape. That tight end group, there's a bunch of guys spreading around. Master Teague's getting a lot of work. JK's still young. So there's a lot, Justin Fields, very young. So that being said, we're not saving anything. Sometimes just things fit certain coverages and certain fronts, and there's just ways that you attack personnel. There's ways that you attack defensive structures. It is nice to get some things on tape, but I don't know if you're trying to trick anyone. I think we're just trying to continue the momentum that we have. And I think if you get too cute and too coy as a coach, you might lose that. So we're just trying to keep these guys very grounded. And like the question was asked, like we're playing really good, but we can be better. It's just trying to find ways. We had Chapel. I heard a great line from a guy I never heard before, and everybody knows the line, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But then the Chapel guy says the key is, can you make them thirsty? And I think that's the key in our meeting rooms, is to make our players thirsty. They want to come in and keep learning. Go to the practice field and be thirsty and want to practice better. And I think there's a little tact with that and a little art. And I think our coaches have worked hard offensively to keep players engaged. There's a lot of guys that want that ball, but there's only one ball in so many plays. And you got guys like, KJ Hill plays a half. How many catches or touches we had if he had a second half, and the same with Olave and those guys. But that being said, the ball gets spread around, so you check your ego, you try to stay humble, you try to stay hungry, and to me, that's the biggest test that we have each week is to keep our kids grounded, feet on the ground, and keep pushing to be their very best down the stretch.
And when you are installing some of these mesh or pick-looking plays, I think 2 of the touchdowns, Jeremy was going across the middle and setting a screen or looked like that. How do you teach that so that they avoid the contact, avoid getting the flag?
It's kind of like in basketball where, and it's sometimes even in tackling now, when guys launch into people, they're going to get called for targeting. As we go, and there's going to be some contact, but if we are working our way where we're trying to avoid contact, so if you run and just plow into a guy, you're going to get called. But when you get that junction point, if you start trying to navigate and work around, and even if there's a slight collision, you'll get away with it because, you do have the ability to try to avoid. And as you avoid, you can create the mesh that you need. So there's a little art there. We're always pointing out on tape, maybe that's a little too excessive, and you got away with that, and whether it be in practice or in game, or hey, this is really ideal how you got to that point and you really, created that little cluster that creates the opening on the crossing routes.
Front row right, Bill from the Dispatch.
About Garrett Wilson, you've coached a lot of talented wide receivers. Where does he kind of fit in there? And as a freshman, but given his talent, what can he do the rest of the year?
I think as a young guy, I think he's like a lot of those talented guys. Sometimes it's easy, and that being said, that he doesn't just always rely on his talent. I think Chris Olave is a young man that has a combination of talent but tremendous detail in his route running and his work habits. Whereas young guys, sometimes we think Garrett gets away with not as good a release as you want, but he's still quick enough or good enough athlete to make an acrobatic catch and all that. And I think he's just one of those very talented young guys that you're trying to get him past because as you continue to play, as games get bigger, and what as coach would always say, talent gets equated. And when you play in the upper echelon of our opponents, and as these kids get moving even past here to the NFL, to be great, you can't just rely on your talent. I think a lot of our young freshmen come in, they're so talented, they're used to that. And it's getting them to go past the talent, have those great work habits, those great practice and fundamental periods. Like right now, as our fundamentals get short because of individual periods, our fundamentals actually have to become a part of team. And if you're a young player and you rely just, hey, I'm fast, run down the field, and you'll get a release. When you're playing against a great corner, you're going to get jammed up. So it's just him learning as a young guy how to practice at an elite level that matches the talent. I said when I first got here, in my time in Oklahoma, I never saw Adrian Peterson lose a sprint. Terry McLaurin's here 2 weeks. He said, Coach, he beats me by 10 yards every day, and I'm running as fast as I can. Because he was a talented guy that had unbelievable work ethic. And that, to me, is what separates. And so a guy like Garrett, as he has all his talents, he keeps learning how to become because I think you learn. I think working hard is a talent. You don't put it aside. Matter of fact, it's a lost talent in our society right now. It's a talent that gets shoved back and pushed aside. I think guys that work hard become the great players. I think it's one of the foundation principles of our program, why it's been so successful. And guys like Garrett, not that he's a poor worker, but as he becomes an elite worker with elite talent, the sky's the limit for a guy like him.
Not a sensitive subject, but Indiana, your former school, is ranked for the first time in 25 years. You recruit a lot of those players. Is there some pride in what they've done?
Given, I get a chance, to walk because I think on that 2 deep when we played them is about 24, 25, 26 those guys that we had recruited, coached, played. A lot of those guys are contributing. I'm really proud of those guys having the success that they wanted. They were part of 2 bowl teams. They've been very close the last 2 years, and now they're on a good roll, and they got some great competition down the stretch. So I'm very, very happy for those guys. I got 2 daughters over there. Open day week was Dad's weekend, so I recruited and got to drive by to have a meal with my 2 daughters and spend some time with them. So, again, very proud of those guys. Very happy for them. And like all jobs, those are tough jobs that take a lot of energy, a lot of work, and we were proud of what we started, and really for the players, very, very happy that they are continuing to have success, and hopefully they're just scratching the surface and they'll keep going.
Front row right, Tim from Lettermen Row.
Yeah, Kevin, when you were talking about landmarks a while ago, it seems like one of the favorite ones, it's almost like a lighthouse, is the umpire standing in the middle of the field. Are you ever concerned or worried about that guy, where he stands in the middle of the field and some of the things teams like to like you guys like to run off of him?
You know, years ago, I know Coach Cooper, you'd actually bring that up in pregame to refs, but I think our refs now have so much more access to study film, and they watch, and I think they're much more prepared because of the video capabilities that they come in and they know where the routes are. And actually, the umpires are really a couple yards deeper than they used to be because so much is coming across them. And sometimes you can actually use that ump as an extra body to get a little rub for you, too, if you want to from time to time. So he creates some clutter in there, too. So.
And one other quick thing, you and Stud, with this offensive line, how would you describe it right now? I know there's always improvement to go, but they've dominated the line of scrimmage quite a few times, almost every week this year. What is different? What is good about this group that you can put your finger on?
We know preseason. I was thinking, we had a lot of new faces, but we really had some talented guys. It was kind of their time, and they've done a great job with Coach Mick through the all season. I think Jonah coming in has been a very solid transfer that he's been very much accepted by his peers, and he's very much one of our positive leaders. He grades and about as well as anyone every week, and a first-time player for us. It really didn't start till the summer because he had to graduate. Of course, we're going back to play at his previous school, and I know he's got a lot of respect for his teammates and going back home. So I didn't want to get talking just about that or him because that's a story. It's really hopefully not a story. But those inside guys, to me, is where we're a little bit different. I think the way Jonas came in and the way Wyatt and Josh Myers has played. We've had some good centers, but those three guys are very, very smart. They see things and communicate where we're comboing, because sometimes you're not comboing the linebackers, you're comboing the safeties or corners as formations change and defenses get very unique in how they try to stop your run game. And so you got to be able to see those pictures. And when you're a no-huddle team, you're going fast. You got to process quickly and see things, get everyone on the same page. And those guys have been solid. We're talented at tackle. We've been had a couple mild injuries there with Thayer and Brandon Bowen a little bit, but we've got some depth there. It's a deep group. It practices really well. There's some great young players behind them with DeJuan and Enoch and Ryan Jacoby and Harry Miller. It's a deep group. It's a talented group. They practice hard. They go against a great D-line every day, and we embrace that competition. So like today we'll do inside drill, and it's 16 good reps, and it's good football, and it's fun, and it's made us a tougher football team the way we practice with those guys.
Fourth row middle, Patrick from 24/7 Sports.
Ryan was just talking about the importance of a backup quarterback, the mental reps, because he's not getting as many first-team looks in practice. With Chris, he seems to be able to take that and translate it when we've seen him on the field. How have you seen him do that? How has he established himself as the number two for you guys behind Justin?
I thought, first of all, he played at West Virginia for Coach Holgerson, so he was kind of used to getting the ball out of his hand. And when you get recruited by those guys and playing this system for a few years like you did, I think you get really comfortable with passing concepts. And we do some different things, but we do a lot of similar things. So I think from the passing side, it was very, very easy transfer for him. He played over there. I kind of felt, a year ago that, I think he was trying to figure out how serious to approach. Was he really in the mix? I remember telling him this summer, I go, I think you give us the best chance to win outside of possibly Justin here. So if I was you now, you need to be ready. We're going to need you. And so I think he's embraced that. Ryan and Coach Ursuch, Mike has done a great job with him, Gunner as well. But I think Chug's just his playing experience and his savviness. He's very, very good with the ball. He's well liked as a transfer. I was talking about Johnny's very well liked around here by his teammates. So he has a great relationship with the kids. I think the receivers feed off him. They trust him. And he's really developing into being a quality backup for us right now.
How important are games like last week where you have a whole half to get not only him into the game, but Gunner as well to really get game reps?
A lot of those guys, too, now. I mean, you got those freshmen like O-line and D-line guys. Or we had guys looked at one time, basically the guys that was our scout team on defense had a chance to play a couple drives at the very end. And, those guys in practice maybe get more reps than anyone, yet they don't play in the game. And all of a sudden, you're out there in front of your family, your friends, your peers, and it's on TV, and you're the guy sacrificing your summer and getting up at 5 in the morning for those 6 a.m. workouts. And you're not on scholarship a lot of times. So for all those guys, it's not that you want every game to be that way. Sometimes they go, but to me, when it's the end of the year and a lot of young guys, and with this new redshirt rule where freshmen can play a game or two or three and still get redshirted, I think it makes their development go that much better because they can buy in, because they get to taste being on the field. When you just practice, 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 never play. So for Chugs to get out there and have some success, same with Gunner, but for so many of those guys to get on the field, except for the injury we had with our running back, that was a great opportunity for a lot of those guys. So happy for them.
Fifth row right, Spencer from Lettermen Row.
Kevin, you guys have not had that many opportunities to go with third down game plan just because you guys move the ball so efficiently. Do you find yourself trying to find a balance between knowing that you need a third down game plan every game and also not really using it that much because you're just staying ahead of those chains?
I want to say it was Coach Billick with the Ravens, the first guy came out and started looking at how many times you get a 3rd and 1, but how many times you practice it or how many times you get whatever. So, the good Lord doesn't give you time back, but, man, we've had a lot of hours and some third downs. And at the same time, you better be prepared and ready for it. So tomorrow's a big third down day for us, and we'll have matter of fact, that's kind of all we do tomorrow is third down and score zones. Today's our base plan for the most part. So we put a lot of time on it because to be a good offense, you have to convert. You have to convert third downs. You have to convert in the score zone. And so whether we're getting those opportunities in games, I can tell you that we put ample amount of time each week. Again, I can't tell you last week all the blitzes we were ready for because Maryland brought a very extensive blitz package in previous games. So we had a bunch of reps. Never came to fruition because maybe they didn't call it when we got to that situation or we didn't get to that situation a lot. But as a coach, you don't assume. I guess that's that paranoia stuff that we have to deal with. We also have to manage also how to practice to get our guys ready to play. But there's a lot of time on conversions. So we're very good at third down right now. I think we're one of the best in the country. But we put a lot of time. We take that very serious because if you don't convert, you don't get points, whether it be third down or score zone. And that's why we're scoring, is we are converting when those situations are presenting themselves.
Fourth row right, Joe.
With Rashad going back to defense, what were the conversations with him and the rest of the coaching staff, and what is his ability to play both ways say about his mentality and his versatility?
Yeah, that had been talked about for a year or two. He's always had the itch to want to go back. You guys remember the one little where he slapped me around in practice out there back last winter and made me look like the old guy that I am. But I just felt last week we had a few nick-up injuries. Some guys have been out, and I went to Coach Johnson. I said, hey, we've kind of kidded about this. Do you think you need Rashad this week? And he said, yeah. I said, well, he's doing good enough on offense. I said, just when do you want to do it, and how do we do it, and how do you practice it? And before I walked in, he just grabbed me and said, what do you think today? And I said, well, today's our base play, base day of what's going on. You tell me when you need him, you can have him. And hopefully I think he's mature enough as a fifth-year guy that we can minimize stress for him and just put him in good situations. I know the defensive coaches will put him in situations where they think he can handle it. And now me having coached him for 3 years, I think I got a good feel of what he needs and all this. We'll just go back and forth. He's not going to have a full playbook on both ends, but was happy for him to get a sack. I was trying to get him a couple passes that didn't come his way last week, but we're going to keep bringing. He's had a solid year, and he needs to finish up. He's on track to graduate in December, which is going to be a great deal, and we're going to keep pushing him to the finish line very hard.
Third row right, Rob. Dispatch.
Kevin, so you've been so dominant. I think point differential plus 40. 1995 Nebraska. A lot of people think the greatest team ever was plus 38, so you're doing better than that. Do you really know what you have until you get in a crunch town game? I mean, you're allowed to be curious as a coach. Do you ever wonder about that? Like, when is it coming and how will you react and how good are you?
Yeah, I think the only thing I can say is you're never going to know till whatever those situations present themselves. But I know we practice against a really good crowd on both sides of the ball, and we that's one of the foundation pillars of our team is the way we work and practice, and we go good on good. So that being said, when the talent gets equated, it's not like we're just having walkthroughs and going against the down the line guys. So you still got to execute when the lights are on and it's loud and all that kind of stuff. But I just think the way we practice, to me, is more encouraging than the talent we have. I really appreciate the way our kids come to work. And I think when you're having good practices and you're going against great competition, you trust when you get in that game environment that you'll be ready to execute it at a high level. But until we do,
Do you look forward to those times? I mean, you love blowouts, but do you look, as a coach, seeing how your guys do when it's all on the line?
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I mean, I actually like Tuesdays and Wednesdays better than Saturdays, for what it's worth. Always have. I think, I just kind of like, getting in the classroom with the guys and going out on the field and adding new things and wrinkles and looking at and attacking a new deal and putting a plan together and working. Then you go out there Saturday and I mean, I like game day, but I like the work of the week and the process of the week. So, I don't necessarily love blowout. I mean, I like to win. And you always take a lot of pride when you're doing whatever it takes to win, especially in those close games when you're taking care of the ball and you got conversions, you're playing good in the kicking game, and it comes together in all phases. So at the end of the day, I mean, the games have went so far the way they've went, okay. I just know the way we practice, I think, gives our coaches, and with that being said, I think it gives our players a lot of confidence each week that they have a chance to play well.
You've been around some really good teams, great teams. What to you is the it factor that makes them what they are, what they become?
I think the teams that are the closest, it's one thing to have talent, but I mean, some of the teams have sometimes maybe not as much talent as others, but they're very close, and there's just a little bond, care, love factor that they truly have for each other. Whether you're doing even some of your off the field activities, and you're having a reflection period, and you notice the number of people that are there with before the game or during the week. You see the kids that are just. You listen to them in the locker room. You see them off the field. You listen to them up in the cafeteria, and you watch who's sitting with who, and you see how it intermingles and how the team kind of blends and mixes. It's kind of neat when you go in there and sit down. You don't see the old linemen sitting together. You see them intertwined with defensive players and skill guys and specialists and whatnot. So I think the best teams are the closest team, and I think this team's pretty tight.
Front row left, Nathan.
Just what ways have you seen Justin's intelligence make the biggest impact this season?
Again,
Justin's intelligence is either his football IQ or just his intelligence in general.
He's very talented. He's very, very smart. And matter of fact, that Coach Meyer would even say previously, you better come prepared for the meetings when you're coaching certain players. He's a guy you need to be prepared for because he's very smart. He's got a lot of physical skills. I think people see, but he's a great kid that has really high intelligence. I think he has very good vision, meaning like I think he can take the chalkboard to video to the field. Some guys can't do that. Has a great understanding of again, visually and conceptually what you're trying to do. So he's got a lot of talent, and intelligence is very high on the list of what he's very talented at.
You need to come prepared for meetings with players like him. Is it because they're going to have questions for you that maybe another player
Or they'll
wouldn't?
tune you out. And they'll not believe in you. I mean, he's smart enough. He's going to know that you know what you're talking about or not because, wait a minute, Coach, now if it says coverage, don't you think yes, you should go there. No, here's a blitz issue and why. And so, I mean, one of the best ways to make those guys thirsty when they come to your meeting room is that you're prepared and you can bring them information that they know is going to make them a better player. And when you're dealing with someone like Justin that's unbelievably talented, has high goals and aspirations, and is very, very smart, it's a credit to Coach Day and Coach Ursuch to come in there and capture him and continue to bring him along as they're doing.
Kevin, it seems like wider zone runs have become more of a base run play for you guys than maybe tight zone, inside zone has been here in the past. I'm just wondering, is there anything about JK's skill set or the skill set of your offensive line that's allowed that play to maybe come to the forefront and be featured a little more?
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like you kind of mix them, because the tempo of the runs and where they hit. You got to be careful that we don't do too much because some of the clean fundamentals and aiming points and tracks, like I say, you can just start blindly running left and right and really mess up the play there because you're just, you're not doing exactly right. We weren't thinking it necessarily fit JK, although it does. It's a play over time that years and years ago, everybody started doing with McNally and the guys at the Bengals between inside and outside. We'd had a lot of success at Oklahoma doing it, had a fair amount of success previously over at Indiana. I think with the line we had and where we thought we were at tackle, I think Coach Day just wanted to look at it a little bit in spring to see how it went. It just kind of snowballed. And we've ran it before, but maybe not as much. But as we came out of spring, we just saw their line was creating a lot of just as they're big, but they're actually very athletic. So as they get moving, they just create a lot of momentum and force. And as they create that force, they just create seams and creases within the defense. And J.K. and Master, the more he ran it, got a little bit more comfortable with seeing those cuts and when to stick their foot in the ground and make that hard up and in cut or bounce it around or whatever. So it's a play we didn't mean to. We just stumbled into it. We didn't say like last year, let's change and do this. We just said, let's take a look at it. And as we did, we really got good at it. It's kind of snowballed, and it's been a very, very good play for us.
Kevin, when Jonah Jackson went in the transfer portal, you were one of the first coaches to, I think, from Ohio State to call him. When you called him, what do you remember kind of telling him about Ohio State and what impression had Jonah made?
Yeah, he was. I had gotten wind. And when they called us and said he was like in the portal that we were allowed to contact him, I think he was caught off guard by the number of people that were reaching out to him. And of course, Michael Jordan had decided, it was about a week or so after Michael had decided to go, because early in January, mid-January, whenever that happened, I just said, hey, we have a tremendous team and a real need. And there's no guarantees here. You're going to have to earn your position, but I don't think we need transfer backups. There's a really good opportunity. Don't know much about you. Why don't you check us out? And there was a couple coaches that within Rutgers that knew me, and I said, hey, you can find out a little bit about us and what we're doing. But from there, Coach Stud got really involved and got a great relationship. When it was time, went out to see him. We got him on a visit. Worked hard to get him, and we're glad we got him.
One other question on Rashad Berry. You don't see a lot of two-way guys anymore in college football. It's been since 2012 since Ohio State had a guy playing offense and defense. Why has that become, I guess, so rare in your mind?
I think because as coaches, we think we have to work so hard and be here all day, we come up with a lot of stuff they have to learn. So if we could keep the game simple, they could probably play two ways. But since we work these enormous amount of hours, we come up with all these schemes that take a lot of time to learn. So it's hard. I mean, the offenses are complicated, defenses are complicated. Wherever you're at, learning how to attack the defense as an offensive player, what are your fundamentals, what are your plays, what are they doing, how to get it right, now flip it around. You're over there. This formation line up here, that formation line up here. This call do this, that call do that. If they go to empty, check this. I mean, it just gets a lot after a while. So you got to be smart. There's a lot of talented players that maybe over time some guys have, here we've had enough depth, maybe you didn't need to. Right now it's a unique situation. Rashad came to offense because we had a dire need at tight end. We had some young tight ends that weren't ready. Marcus Ball was the only veteran. We needed him. He has done a tremendous job for us the last 2 years. We've developed that position. Rutgers came on. Jake Hausman's gotten better. Luke Farrell's very, very solid. And he's very comparable to those guys. Defense has always had a bunch of depth at the end. This year with some minor injuries, they've got a little thin. So the door kind of swung open that way for him. We didn't want him to be a two-way player. And that being said, he's not really a two-way player. He's a situational player playing on both sides of the ball. And there'll be certain situations that I think Coach Johnson will put him in to give him a chance for him to be successful, but more importantly for our team to be successful.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Larry Johnson. Oh, yeah. A place you can't even work in the building.
I wrote a story. Derek Dooley's consistency. Like came in straight from. Hey, thanks. Well, we're gonna take you straight to the press conference. Like, we need to stop some more stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like he didn't have to.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like we landed, it was just past sundown. It was still right enough. Appreciation.
Hey, Alabama motto this week? Motto this week? Don't get mad, get even.
Oh, man. We were there.
Sure they will. Why would you play him then?
You don't need it.
He's gonna shut it down.
Tell you what though, that pass he threw at the end, that's about as pure a pass as you can throw. On a bad ankle? Yeah, on a bad ankle. The good thing is the ankle's on his landing foot, not his push off.
We only got one good quarter. That was good draft. Not as good as this guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, nobody's good as this guy.
Everyone say hello to Jeff Okudah.
What up with everyone?
Just straight up question. What do you see about Rutgers that concerns you? The little bit of video maybe you've seen already.
Just up to this point, I haven't seen anything so far on film that just sticks out to me. I mean, 9 weeks into the season, you see a lot of football. So right now, we haven't seen anything that sticks out. I know they're gonna bring their A game to the table, and we have to bring ours.
You guys did it looked like a pretty damn good job of keeping your focus last week, despite a distraction, despite the fact you were playing a prohibitive underdog, in Maryland. Why is this team? What's special about this team that's enabled it to do that?
I think our team has just done a really good job of showing resiliency, no matter what happens. Being here for 3 years, we've had we've had our fair share of adversity. So just being able to respond and respond positively to anything that we face, I think that's just been big. We've always stressed that we have to be able to respond to adversity.
Jeff, I assume that Chase has been practicing well. We know that he's not hurt. What has he been, like to be around while he's dealt with this situation?
I think he's done a great job of being a really great leader to the defense, and especially those younger defensive ends like Tyreek, Zach, and Javante. So I think for him to be available, they've been using him as a great resource, and it showed. I mean, those young guys stepped up on last Saturday.
How much does that help you? I mean, you're obviously working in the secondary, but so much of I've heard from Coach Hafley that the pass rush helps the secondary. When you have Zach and Tyreek jumping in there and getting their first starts, do you notice that? I mean, are you seeing that they're having that same kind of impact?
Definitely. I think it goes hand in hand. Just having a great D-line always helps the secondary. And I think for them, more importantly, it just showed them what they're able to do. Like, they don't have to rely on Chase to be able to make plays. Like, they went out there and showed that they can make plays on their own. And I think that's just really commendable.
Okay, he was just asking about the D-line, and you've got 3 senior defensive tackles kind of right in the middle of that. What sort of impact do they have throughout the whole defense in terms of, I guess, leadership or that sort of thing?
I think having that experience in the middle is really big. Davon is having a great year. BB's always been a really good player. So I think having those guys in there, being able to plug up the gaps, makes it easier for the linebackers to scrape and make plays.
When you have guys that have that kind of experience and that kind of football IQ, are the things that they see or that happen during a game, does that ever get filtered all the way back to you in the secondary? Is there a connection there?
I don't know how much it applies to us, but I think when you can get interior pressure, it's really hard for quarterbacks to make accurate throws. So I think it actually everything does tie in together. It's having interior pressure, having an edge rush presence. So I know a lot of teams aren't in a position to have both those at their disposal. So for us to have that interior pressure and the edge rush, I think that's big.
Jeffrey, what's practice like at this time of year? I imagine that you have more film and more specifics to look at when it comes to your opponent, but at the same time, Kevin Wilson just talked about how this is the time of year that you can let fundamentals get away from you if you don't practice those, and yet practice time is scaled back to keep you well rested. So what's practice like this time of year as, say, September and October?
I think Coach Hafley has done a really good job of just making sure every time we step on the field to just making sure we're really lock into the techniques of our position. So like you said, it doesn't slip away. And so every time we step on the field and do our individual drills, we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again just to kind of drill that into our head that we have to be really specific in how we maintain our technique.
We've heard a lot of members of the offense talk about how they're not playing up to their potential yet. We just haven't seen their ceiling. Is the same thing true of the defense? And if so, what are you capable of?
I think actually I don't know that we're necessarily in a position to like say that we have been playing to our potential. I think that we've done a really good job playing defense this year. I think that obviously there's always things that we can improve on, but to this point, I think that we've really kind of displayed the growth from last year.
We'll go back to the front row here. Bill.
Jeff, you cover Garrett Wilson in practice, I'm sure, on a regular basis. What stands out about him, and how much better can he be?
I think what stands out about Garrett is like his ball skills. I mean, since I've been here, I haven't seen anyone that kind of possesses those ball skills and how natural he's able to locate the ball, high point the ball. So I think that just if you look at it, with another offseason with Coach Mick and then Coach Hartline, and as he starts to, I guess, mature as a player, he can just only get so much better. And even right now, I mean, Coach Hafley and me are always talking like this guy's going to be special.
Kevin Wilson talked about about the work ethic, and when a guy comes in as talented as he is, just like you were as a five-star guy, it takes a while to realize I've really got to work hard. Where's Garrett on that spectrum?
I think Garrett works hard. A lot of the things that he does right now comes natural to him. So I think as the guys, kind of the older guys, branch off and leave Ohio State, he's gonna like kind of realize that he has to, with the talent that he has, he's gonna be more in a leadership role, and guys are gonna look up to him. And then when he starts realizing that, you're gonna see him just keep maturing, and he's gonna keep becoming a better of a player.
Jeff, your coverage has been good enough lately where teams are only throwing at you a couple times a game, if that. What is it like as a player where you're spending most of your time when they're not throwing you the ball?
I mean, selfishly, it's kind of frustrating because you want to be able to kind of be more involved in the game. But then I guess when you think about the grand scheme of things and what it does to offensive coordinators and how it limits their play calling, you kind of just have to, I guess, buy into that. And for me, it's kind of about just playing good technique every single snap and lock into my assignment and being detailed. Don't make sure that I do my job and don't try to do someone else's job.
When you watch film, how do you kind of evaluate yourself and know you're doing a good job if you're not throwing the ball your way?
Like I said, I think my biggest thing is just technique. If I'm playing good technique, then I feel like if they won't throw the ball away regardless. So I kind of just have to be really critical of my technique and make sure that my technique is on point.
Third row, Dan.
Jeff, what is it that you think Davon Hamilton specifically has brought to this defense, being a fifth-year guy and the way he stepped up at defensive tackle spot this year?
I think what stood out to me is I think his leadership. My first couple years here, I didn't really hear him talk, but now I always hear him be more of a vocal guy, which lets me know he's more confident in the way he's been playing. So I think that having Davon more confident, more vocal, it's been really big on those on that D-line, especially with Chase going down.
Yeah, I mean, how big is that you know that, okay, a Chase goes down and Jonathan Cooper can't play, but we still have a guy like Davon who can step up and be that leader for us up front?
That's big because it just it kind of helps tie everything into place. The D-line has someone who's vocal, backers have someone who's vocal, and secondary we have guys that'll talk. So when you have guys that can step up for every single unit and be vocal, I mean, it makes it easier for guys to follow.
Jeff, I like that sweatshirt. What does that message mean to you?
It's kind of what LeBron's uninterrupted and more than an athlete. So I guess just not being one-dimensional, being more versatile, trying to get out there and have more of an impact on this world than just being considered a football player.
Patrick, 247. Anybody else? Thank you, Jeff.
All right, you guys take care.
What's up?
How excited are you for this game? And not to disrespect Rutgers, but you're a 50-some point favorite. There's a reasonable chance you'll get to play a decent chunk of the game. How excited are you?
I'm looking forward to it. I think the thing I'm most excited about is I have a large group of family and friends who can't always make it out here to Ohio for games, so I'm excited to have them there to see me play. Yeah, I mean, we're going to prepare for Rutgers like we do for everyone else we play, you know, each Saturday. So definitely looking forward to it.
How many tickets?
Still working on it. I actually just came from that. The number keeps growing. I think probably right now I have a few more people asking, so we'll see.
Probably get them cheap.
Yeah, true. I don't have a number yet. Not people that are asking, probably upwards of 60, but 70. But there's also a lot of people who are probably just going to end up buying tickets because it's definitely a tall order for me.
Second row, Bill. Chris, this past game was, I think, maybe the most you've got to throw the ball since you've been here.
Yeah.
And I think some people might have been surprised a little bit by how well you did throw it, especially the one you threw that got called back to Garrett. Honestly, might have been one of the better thrown balls this year. Like, I don't know. How would you explain your throwing ability to people who have not seen a lot of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been pretty confident in my throwing ability. You know, I was definitely happy that I got to sling it around a bit on Saturday. You know, usually sometimes, especially earlier in the season when I have to go in the game, we're kind of just trying to kill clock, you know, leave and whatnot. So I haven't always gotten the opportunity to throw it around, but I mean, I'm here because I love throwing the football, so I was happy about it for sure.
When you graduated from West Virginia, why did you ultimately decide that you wanted to keep playing?
I love the game, man. I love playing football. I love throwing the football too. It's that simple for me, you know, that feeling of throwing like a perfect pass, you know, for the 5 seconds that I threw that one post up to 5, you know, I felt really good, and that's why I'm still playing, and I'll play for as long as I can. Yeah.
Fourth row, Patrick. Coach Dave mentioned that when you first got here, you had to do some reshaping of your body physically. I'm just curious what that entailed, if you can remember that.
Yeah. So I had been away from football for 7-8 months before I got here, and I had a hell of a time. And I wasn't in great shape when I came here. I'll be the first to admit that. You know, I wasn't like fat or anything, but I was skinny. And when you walk in here and you walk in the locker room here, man, everyone's built like a brick house. So Coach Mick and I, you know, we kind of worked through that in season last year, and then throughout this off season, you know, it's been a focus of mine to try to, you know, just be somewhere on the same level as everyone else here. So a lot. Yeah, I mean, I've been able to add. I mean, shoot, when I walked in the door here, I drove up. I was sitting on the beach for a few months last summer, just hanging out, and I was pretty thin. And then throughout the course of the time I've been here, I think I've put on about 30 pounds. So, you know, that's a testament to Coach Mick and our strength staff and what we do here. And I've also just been eating a whole lot of food, so.
Far left, Lori.
Chris, has your workload in practice changed at all from the beginning of the season? Are they resting Justin more as the year goes along, or because he's coming out in the second or third quarter?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, our practices are pretty structured, and we're fairly consistent with the reps that we have. I mean, Fields is a freak. He doesn't really need much rest, to be honest. So I'd say that it's been pretty consistent since preseason, yeah.
How challenging is it for you to play with the number of reps that you're being given?
I don't know. I mean, that's the way it is when you're the second-string QB. You know, you can't always get as many physical reps in practice. You know, I try my best to, you know, when I'm not in there, I try to use my mind, you know, and get those mental reps to be prepared. I look at it as a challenge that I welcome, you know. So, yeah.
Chris, when you got here, it seemed hard to envision that you would have the amount of opportunities you've had this year. You know, you looked at the room and the way it was then, it was like, well, I don't see a path for Chris to play. Has any part of this ever caught you by surprise, or you catch yourself thinking, like, this worked out way better than I thought it could?
I don't know. I never really thought about it like that. You know, I just came here and I planned on doing whatever I could here for Ohio State, and you know, things shook out the way they did, and I'm just grateful for every opportunity I have to play. You know, so.
Aside from your, you know, adding that 30 pounds, how do you feel like you're a better quarterback now than when you got here?
I mean, mentally, you know, the way that Coach Day, Coach Yursich, and just the philosophy of our team and our offense here, I just feel like I'm so much more mentally prepared, you know, week in and week out. I think my football knowledge has skyrocketed since I walked in the door here, 2 years ago? A year ago, actually, shit. And I think that's helped me a lot, you know, on the field, yeah, for sure.
Second row, Tony. You say it's a great feeling when the ball is in the air, especially even the one that got called back. Did you get hit on that one?
The one that got called back? Yeah.
So you say it's a great feeling, but then, you know, you got smashed, right?
Yeah, I think the pros outweigh the cons there. I knew I was going to get smacked, and I had the option to get the ball out of my hands quick and get like 3 or 4 yards, or hang on to it for a split second longer, get smacked, and potentially get whatever it was, like 50 yards and a touchdown. So that's kind of what went through my mind there.
Coach Day said it helps to be sort of creative, mentally creative, because you don't get a lot of reps, and you mentioned that. Can you walk us through sort of how that works? Is it like watching a movie? You just sort of picture things? What's the process?
I'd say like in practice, I stand right behind Fields when he's taking his reps, and he does the same with mine. That's just kind of the culture they have here at Ohio State. So I'll see the play come in, and I'll go through it on my own in my head, and I'll go through the reads. And usually, I mean, I could tell you where he's throwing the ball most of the time in the game, you know, aside from the times where he uses his legs, and that's what he does, yeah.
Last couple, we'll go front row.
We haven't had a chance to ask other quarterbacks about Justin very much this year. I'm just curious, from a football IQ standpoint, what impressed you the most about him?
He just makes really smart decisions, you know. For being so young, and he doesn't force the ball, which is huge for someone his age. He's really confident in his athletic ability. So he could hold on to the ball, and he doesn't feel like he has to force it into small windows, which, you know, I don't think he's turned the ball over much at all this season, which is huge, and it's in our plan to win. So, I mean, he's just a smart young player, and he's a freak. So.
What sense do you get from him in meetings? I mean, does he think about the game, see the game at an advanced way for being that young?
Yeah, for his age. And, I mean, just the way the coaches prepare here, and the way they have us prepare, you know, he has no choice. But, yeah, I mean, he's just a smart young dude, and sky's the limit.
Yeah, Chris, like, I just want to go back to the Wisconsin game, and it's 10-7, and Justin has to come out the game. And, like, as a backup quarterback, you're not necessarily, like, your reps are limited because of that. Like, what's the first thing that's going through your head when you see he has to come out the game, and all of a sudden you're probably taking your most important snaps as a Buckeye?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping they'd let me throw it downfield, but had to settle for the screen. Nothing really went through my head, you know. It's just like, oh, he came out with his helmet. Now I have to go in and make a play. Sorry, my buddy just made a funny face out there. But yeah, I mean, you don't really have a lot of time to think about it.
So, like, how are you staying mentally ready on the sideline? Like, what if happens in Penn State or what if happens in Michigan, all of a sudden you're thrown in there?
I mean, this time of year, my biggest challenge is staying warm on the sideline. So you could usually see me, you know, bundled up and whatnot. But I think I always stay mentally ready. I don't really know how. It's just something I've learned over my 100 years playing college football.
Do you feel like, knock on wood, but in a situation where you have to do that, do you feel like you could go in there and handle things pretty well and pull out?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And last set of questions, Dan, right behind.
Chris, just what does it mean for you to kind of get these opportunities that you're getting to come in and play when you talked about it a year ago? This might not have happened for you.
It's awesome, man. I love playing football, and I'm fortunate to have a bunch of really talented players around me, even there at the end of the game. Having 5 and 6 that they're on the outside. It's fun. It's a whole lot of fun.
What do you think are the biggest things that you'll kind of take away from this experience that maybe you wouldn't have had if you hadn't made this decision to come here?
I don't know, that's pretty deep, man. I'll probably have to get back to you on that. I'm just fortunate to be here right now, and excited with where this team is heading.
Can I ask you one? Fields is a freak. You're a fellow quarterback. What does that mean? What are you in your mind? What does a freak at quarterback?
Well, he's just
define it.
He's just physically like a freak. I think if you look up freak on Google, it's just gonna say like he's just not the same. So
yeah.
Physically he can make all the throws. He's fast. He's athletic. He's one of the fastest guys on the team, I think. And he's exciting to watch. He's exciting to practice with and play with. And he's also just a super cool dude.
Thank you, Chris.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Say that again?
Touchdowns in 5 games.
They have no touchdowns in the last 3 fields. None. They have 3 and 1 field goal.
1 field goal.
Yeah. Just want to make sure.
That broke like a 14-quarter scoreless string of some sort. It was, they caught him in week 2. They caught him before Ohio State's defense got that bad. They got him early.
around him a lot. I just wonder how Chase has been like in meetings and around the team the last week or so while he's dealt with that situation there.
He's just been exactly the same as he was before. I mean, he's just supporting us from afar. I mean, obviously he's going through a situation, and he's just continued to be himself.
He's supporting you guys. How are you returning the favor? And
I mean, we always support him no matter what. I mean, no matter what the situation is, what the verdict is, we're still going to be, I mean, we're still family at the end of the day.
Yeah, Vaughn, in 4 or 5 years, what has changed the most about you and your game, if you had to sum it up for somebody?
I would say I'm just more experienced than I was before. I mean, I understand the game of football a lot more than I did before.
So in other words, you kind of know what's happening almost before a play starts, and it gives you a head start? I mean, explain what that means for you.
I mean, somewhat like that. I mean, I don't know exactly what's going to go on, but I can have a good idea what's going on.
And number 3, just physically, the way you've changed physically, do you feel like you're a force, I guess, attacking the A-gap or whatever you want to call it, you know, from play to play? What has changed about that for you over 4 years?
I think I'm better conditioned than I was coming in. I mean, you could say I'm a force, but I mean, just try to do my job as best as possible.
You've watched Zach Harrison progress this year.
Mhm.
What stood out the most to you about his development, and what do you see as his potential?
I think the biggest thing I like about him is he's willing to learn. I mean, a lot of guys, they come in and think they know a lot of what's going on, or not quite understanding what the scheme is or whatever. But he's been really fun to be around. I mean, he really wants to learn. He wants to be a part of the unit, so that's probably the best part. Potential-wise, I mean, sky's the limit for him. I mean, if he really develops the way Coach Johnson has prepared him to, I mean, there's nothing he can't do. I mean, I don't.
Spelling of your name?
Oh, my is DAVON. That's how you spell my name.
You never corrected it.
I mean, there's a lot of people on a daily basis. I mean.
Third row, Dan. Devon, you're the only player on the team now that's been named a champion for every game this year. What does that mean to you to be getting that kind of recognition from your coaches for the way you played?
I think kind of a big thing that I was trying to do at the beginning of the season and before the season for me is to be consistent. I feel like a lot of teams are willing to look at that, and it's just going to help my team out for the most part, and that was just kind of what I've been focusing on. So that's just like a measure for me of how consistent I've been.
I know you talked before the year about how you had dropped from, I think, a 5.4 to a 5.0 and a 40. Do you feel like you're just playing a lot faster this year?
Yeah, I feel like that has a lot to do with the experience, like I said before. I mean, I try to. I mean, I don't know. Just go out there and try to play as fast as I can.
This past week, with Chase being out and Jonathan Cooper, obviously they're both captains. Did you feel like it was your responsibility to kind of step up and be that leader of the defensive line without those guys?
Honestly, I mean, captains do mean something, but I mean, before even all that, even when they were named captains, I always felt like I was the leader of the defensive line, and that's kind of how you have to be. I mean, I'm an older guy in the room, so it's kind of my position as in the room, captain or not.
You 3 sacks in the last 2 weeks. When you went back and watched film, I guess sort of self-critiquing, did you see something you've been doing better these last couple of weeks that allowed you to have that kind of penetration?
I wouldn't say, I don't know. I've kind of been working a lot, like just getting off in general or being more explosive in general. But I just kept on trying to be myself each week. So,
You know, the defensive ends get so much attention in this program, especially right now because you got some really good ones.
Mhm.
What do you feel like yourself, BB, Cornell, what do you guys have to add as far as a rush from the interior?
I feel like we just have to impact the quarterback. I mean, a lot of the time, quarterbacks don't like inside pressure. I mean, it's different coming from the outside. They can step up, but when you're pushing the pocket inside, they can't step up to anywhere. It makes it hard for them.
Rashad Berry's been playing tight end for the past 3 years, and then makes the switch over last week to play some D-line. What have you seen from him in practice, and what does that show about him to go both ways?
Kind of the same thing I would say about Zach. He's just willing to learn. I mean, he's excited to play defensive end. So, I mean, that always helps in anybody trying to transition. What was the second question again? I'm sorry.
What does it show about him, and what have you seen of him in practice?
He's just a very energetic guy. I mean, he enjoys the game of football, and I mean that's going to help you no matter where you go or what position you play.
Front row, Joey? Yes, no? Anybody else? Go.
What has been the biggest progress you've seen from this offensive line going against it almost every week? If y'all go good on good, et cetera, what has just transformed this group, do you think, from week 1 to now?
I just think they're a really smart group overall. I mean, they're really tough up front too. I mean, a lot of teams are not expecting a complete line to be like that because most teams have like 1 or 2 guys here and there, but a whole front line that's tough and smart and understands defenses like they do. I mean, it's just tough for most teams in our conference.
Particularly has caught your eye that's really made, big steps from August to now?
I can't say just one guy. Can I say 2 guys? 2 guys work? I mean, I just go against Josh every day, so I would say Josh. But I also say Jonah from where he started off as when he got here to where he is now. He's a completely different player.
Tony, just getting back to Josh, give us a scouting report on him. What makes him so good, or what gives you trouble with him?
He's just for other teams, he's like a leader. I mean, he's willing to point out and communicate throughout the game and throughout practices and whatnot. For me, it's kind of like going against yourself almost. I mean, he just makes it real difficult, and I make it real difficult for him, so it just kind of evens out. It's like an even playing field.
Does it even out? Do you think you have the edge on him?
I don't think I mean, it just depends on the day. I mean, he gets me just as much as I get him.
Is it Davon or Devon?
Davon is my name.
Devon. Chugunov, what kind of dude is he? Seems.
I mean,
Were you the guy back here making a face at him? He was laughing at something.
Oh no, I wasn't in here just earlier. But
I know he doesn't get a lot of reps. Seems like he can sling it though.
he's really confident from what I know, and he's just overall cool guy. I mean, willing to do anything for you. I mean, just chill.
Thank you.
Jeff Okudah, 3 years in. It's like the Broadway musical. The weirdest one I've ever seen was Tyrod Taylor last year. In 3 separate interviews, pronounced it 3 separate ways. One of them was like, well, my mom calls me this. And he was just like, okay, so that's people went with. And so then he corrected it, and then was asked about it again, like at a separate thing with different people. So he went back to the first one.
It's not like in 2012 when Cardale Jones, his Twitter name was Cordale.
Cordale, yes.
I think there was a miss with people.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was.
There was also Cordale Scott.
Perfect.
Well, Zach Harrison's last name is like last on Twitter. His name is right. Cheater or something. Yeah. That was probably after he didn't play school and needed to slide into the ring. Cordale.
up at a hotel?
Oh, yeah.
Then they were such a mess. They were like, just.
Oh, yeah, because we all had to go pick them up. Because they didn't have.
It's the Big Ten Conference.
Fair, oh, because they were supposed, because we had Andy with us. They're making people pick between basketball interviews and football interviews.
You could have signs that you saw. We got one guy.
You just put the lunch in his head. Wow.
Mike, come finish this. I'm exceptional.
I can't deal with this.
He's chilling here.
What do you mean? He's the truth from Duluth. The truth from Duluth. And my blood has thinned. Nope. My blood has thinned. Yeah, I know. I got it.
Back to the bench.
Yeah, you got Chubb. We'll open up the floor for questions for Josh Meyer. Over to the left, Lori from 610 WTVN.
Ryan Day said that one of the things that's, oh, no, actually, it was Kevin that said it. Kevin Olson said is that there's a lot of love and brotherhood on this team, and for that reason, you don't see position groups keeping to themselves as much.
Right.
Yours is a very tight position group, though, so I'm wondering how much intermingling you guys do.
Yeah, we do a lot of intermingling. I think especially on the offensive side of the ball, just because we spend so much time with those guys. But definitely more so than years past, I think.
Justin had said that there was talk about going on another restaurant run with JK recently. Has that taken place?
It has not, but yeah, we have been talking about it. We need to get that done.
Second row right. Tony?
Josh,
From the Ozone.
What makes Davon so good, and how have you guys made each other better this year?
Yeah, Davon is really good, really good. He's just so strong and so powerful, but he also has the quickness, which like I feel like guys like Davon don't. They have one or the other. He has both, and it's really hard to block. Especially in pass pro, just because you never know what he could hit you with. He's so strong, he can bowl you all the way into the quarterback. Or he could hit you with a move and beat you with quickness. So he's a really tough guy to block.
How have you guys made each other better this year?
Oh yeah, just constantly going at it. The part of it is talking to each other after the rep is over. And discussing why he did this or why I did that, and going back and forth and kind of realizing each other's game.
Third row left. Dan from 11 Warriors.
Josh, just for you guys as a line now, 9 games in, does it just feel like you guys are on a roll the way you're playing right now?
Yeah, definitely. You just kind of get in the flow of it, and definitely a roll. The weeks kind of like start to blend together, and just kind of continuously the same thing over and over again. You get into such a routine of it. Yeah.
Are there things you're able to do now because of the experience you guys have playing together that maybe you weren't as comfortable doing a couple months ago?
Like in terms of like anything specifically.
Calling out plays, or in terms of just even within a play itself?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially early on, we were kind of trying to figure out who we were, as an offense and what our staple was going to be. And I think we figured that out by now.
Front row right. Austin from Lettermen Row.
It's been years that you guys have talked about, Saturday being payday and getting the chance to go play. When you have just a half where you're blowing people out, you don't spend third, fourth quarter on the bench maybe. I mean, do you like that opportunity? Does it annoy you because you want to go play more?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to play, but to be honest with you, it's so good and so fun getting to see some of the other guys get in there and mix it up and see what they can do on the field, with the lights on, and I think me and the rest of the starters really enjoy
getting to see those guys play as well, though. So, you know, it's kind of both, I guess. You know what I mean?
Which one of those young guys caught your eye on Saturday?
I thought, well, I mean, he's not really a young guy, but I thought Gavin played really well. I was talking to him, you know, after every set and watching him and Harry specifically, and I thought they both played pretty well, but Gavin especially.
Right next door, Tim, Lettermen Row.
Yeah, Josh, what is it like? Because you guys have had some almost what I call clinic plays y'all have put on video this year from a blocking standpoint. What is it like to be part of a unit like that where you're, you know, you're coming off of getting your double team and going to the second level, and things are just working. What is it like in the midst of that? What does it feel like?
Yeah, well, you know, that's the best feeling in the world. You know, I think that is maybe my favorite feeling in the entire world is, you know, being on a block, having my guard come off and feeling that running back just zoom right by you. You know, that's one of the best feelings in the whole world. But, you know, when you have guys next to you that are just so good, it makes it so much easier. You know what I mean? Like, you know, a lot of teams can't do that just because they're players across the board. We don't have guys. Not everybody has guys like Wyatt and Jonah and Thayer and Bowen and even our second string guys. So.
Can you sense how, I don't know if special is the right word, this week is for Jonah?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
How does it show up, you think?
Yeah. I think it'll show up in, you know, the way he prepares this week and his seriousness about it. You know, I mean, he spent 4 years of his life there. That's a important piece of his life. So it's obviously going to be pretty important to him.
And can you imagine him? I mean, he was on a program. I'm not knocking him, but, you know, right now they're struggling.
Right.
And he comes to a place that's number one or maybe tonight number two in the CFP rankings, and he's playing on an unbeaten team. What do you think that must be like for him?
I don't know. I'd imagine.
What's any of that to you guys about?
I think he's used to it now. I think we had talked to him about it early on, you know, just what it was like, you know. He just gave, you know, typical answers. Just amazing, you know, having so much fun. But I think he's used to that now. So, but yeah, he's got to be thrilled with how everything's going.
And right next door, Bill from the Dispatch.
Yeah, Rutgers is a huge underdog. What's the challenge for you guys to not take this game lightly?
Yeah, I think, you know, the biggest challenge is just focusing on us like we do every week, you know. Just because, you know, they're an underdog doesn't mean we can't focus on, you know, playing our best, playing together, and getting some really good quality reps in.
Tim just referenced that the CFP is going to come out tonight. You're probably going to drop to 2. Do you guys care? Is there any thought about that at all?
Not really. You know, so much can change from now. You know, all we're focused on is this game, winning this game, and then, you know, moving on from there. But, you know, we try not to worry about what we can't control.
Front row left, Nathan from Cleveland.com.
Just to go back on one of the answers you gave to Lori, you said that this year was there's like more, I guess, cohesiveness where the offensive line group feels closer. Why is that? Did it happen just completely organically? Did somebody like?
I think so. Yeah, it's you know, I couldn't tell you how it happened. It just did. You know, I love all the guys in our room, and you know, top to bottom, I think we all love each other and love spending time together.
And different question. What's impressed you the most about the way Justin Fields thinks about football, or just his IQ, his intelligence?
Yeah, he's very smart. You know, it's interesting sometimes. You know, like it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then we'll go back and forth. Usually in practice, in the game we don't. You know, I'll just stick with the call, and if he wants to switch it, then we'll switch it, and I'll roll with it. But every now and then, you know, I'll be like, no, this, and I'll be like, no, that. We go back and forth. But it's interesting, you know, he's come such a long way, and, you know, his knowledge of the offense is incredible, especially for being here for such a short time. So he's done an outstanding job.
You're saying that's on the actual play call, or that's on?
That's calls after the play was already made, or after the play was already given to us, and there's different calls we can make on that play. Okay. And we're going back and forth about what we want to do on it.
Who wins those arguments?
He does, every time. Yeah.
In the spring, obviously working with the first team line, you guys didn't have Jonah. When he got here, when he, throughout this season, how much has he added to that group with his experience, knowing the Big Ten, just the player that he is? What has he added to?
Yeah, I mean, he's added a ton. You know, obviously his experience, but I think more than anything, his leadership. You know, I mean, he was a captain at Rutgers, and that wasn't a mistake. You know, there was a reason for that. He's a great leader, and you know, he fit in so well. And I just can't say enough about how good of a job he did coming in here. You know what I mean? It can be touchy when a player comes in from another school, you know, and you have to really play it right because that's a room of guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years, and this is a guy that is trying to come in and start, right? And then he's only got 1 year to do it, and you know, there can be a lot of hostility in that room if the person who's coming in goes about it the wrong way, but he didn't do that at all.
Fourth row right, Spencer from Lettermen Row.
Josh, it seemed like early in the season there were teams throwing some twist blitzes at you guys and in pass protection.
Right.
Is that something that you guys have focused on the last couple weeks? 'Cause it seemed like against Maryland you guys were picking those up and passing defenders off really easily.
Yeah, that had been a focal point. You know, we really hadn't passed the ball that much, to be honest with you. I mean, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say in the first several games we didn't pass the ball more than 30 times, something around, or at least around there, you know what I mean, a game, and we're running it close to 50. So that was something that in the bye week that we wanted to focus on and try and get better at, really make a main focus of our bye week on that as an offensive line unit.
Last couple questions, front row right, Joey from the Dispatch.
Josh, you mentioned kind of the closeness of the offensive line. Do you guys do any rituals together? Like, does anybody cook for one another? Like anything?
Yeah, we well, there's a bunch of different things that we do. You know, I know some of our guys go get breakfast Friday morning before the game. My house, so I live with I have 5 roommates in my house, and 3 of them are Gavin, Max Ray, and Luke Farrell, and so we call it victory meal. We have like a second one at our house Monday morning, and make a big old meal, and we'll have guys over from you know, time to time, and so we love doing that.
What's the best thing you cook?
I've cooked so many different things I couldn't even tell you. I don't know. We had biscuits and gravy yesterday. It was like it was really unhealthy. Yeah, but it was great. So.
How many eggs you go through on one of those?
I'm not joking. It's like 40. Yeah, it's a lot.
All of you, it's really good food. I've been there. I go to all of them.
Always there.
Yeah. Final questions over here to the right, Marcus, Dayton Daily News.
When you guys talk about camaraderie being maybe greater this year, how much does the new facility and all the new toys and things that we saw before the season, does that have any impact on it at all?
Yes, big time. You know, and I've talked about this to a couple different people, you know, individually. I think that, especially that room with, you know, the basketball court and then the golf simulator and all the games, I think that was so huge because in the off season, I'll go in there. I love playing golf. I'm not very good, but I love it. So I'll go in there. I'm in there a couple hours a day in the off season, just messing around, you know, hitting shots, maybe watch some film. But you know, while I'm there, some other people, you know, like Rucker loves to golf. We've had a bunch of different guys that like to golf that'll go in there and we'll just play together, and it's guys that I normally wouldn't hang out with outside the facility. And then while we're doing that, there's 10 guys, you know, shooting hoops, playing horse or something. So we're all together for a good amount of time, you know, and I think that added, you know, a significant amount of camaraderie in our team.
Joshua, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.